Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Robert McDowall, and we're going to take a look as to how the States of Guernsey can raise funds to continue the delivery of public services as they are. Morning, Robert. Good to see you.
Good morning. I didn't expect to be talking about funding and taxes in August, but such is the world we live in.
Well, I think, we're all aware of the fact that something's going to have to happen. And
yeah.
Robert and I have sort of shared a list so that we can go through it sequentially. And the first bit, of course, is all about the current liabilities that they have. First of all, the airline. Not many governments own airlines anymore. And they only bought it because the Gatwick slots. Is that still relevant?
I question that, depending on how air transport ultimately emerges from COVID.
Yeah.
But hindsight's a wonderful thing. But perhaps they need to refine their proposition. Perhaps dare I say, some joint venture for a period of time with a commercial airline, which perhaps is restricting its activities to the UK and its environs, might be approached. But yes, I do question, particularly the liabilities.
And of course, that was it. 20 million they were banding about.
Yes, I think it's actually more than 20 million. But it's a big pot of money, and it's growing, and they will need to take a strategic decision on what they do with the airline, i.e. they continue to fund it on some sort of basis, or they do a joint venture, or they sell it. I don't think the third is a very good approach, but I think they should look at some joint venture, frankly.
I don't see the attraction of going into Gatwick personally, because once you've got there, it takes you an hour to sort of find the railway station.
Right.
Did a bit of research. London Gatwick to Victoria, 35 minutes. Southampton Airport to Waterloo, 1 hour and 8 minutes. But Waterloo's the key bit, because that gives you immediate access to the city.
Exactly right. And if they do want another airport in the environs of London, I think why not Stansted? It's not my favourite airport, but it does provide some travel north and East Anglia, and also it's a good link to a lot of other airlines.
Yeah. And the thing is, Robert, presumably those Gatwick slots still have value. They could sell them.
I think so. I mean, again, what the value of those is now really depends on how the industry finally emerges from COVID, and of course, the impact of the what I call the climate change agenda as well. That may affect the price of the slots. But my own instincts tell me that the slots certainly aren't worth as much as they are, but they do have value.
Still has some value. Okay, liability number 2, the grants to Alderney, which of course will have to continue, won't they?
Well, they will, and obviously there's the two aspects of this. There is the very small cash grant, which I think probably only a couple of 100,000 now, since Alderney's taken control of the property taxes. And then of course there are the what we call the transferred services, the largest of which is clearly the health service. And unpopular though it may be, I think the States of Alderney has to really look at the extent to which it can continue to fund healthcare for what I call people coming to live here over approximately the age of 50.
Yeah.
I'm talking about new arrivals, because unless or until there's a reciprocal health agreement with the UK, that is going to be a growing liability into the future. And by all means, let such people use the health service, but they may need to be charged a premium rate for it. I really think the States has to has to have a debate and come to terms with this issue.
Looking at the concept of a reciprocal health agreement, which I think there used to be something, didn't there?
There was until I think it was 2008, 2009, and I may not be entirely accurate in my figures, but I think the cost then to the to Guernsey was about £500,000 or just over, and they axed that in some cost-cutting exercise in the slipstream of the banking crisis.
Another own goal. But
No,
the thing is, though, Robert, how does it work? I would have thought there are more people going from the bailiwick of Guernsey to the UK than the other way round, or have I got the wrong way?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of some of the more specialist healthcare, yes, people go from Guernsey to Southampton and other hospitals for what I call specialist operations and care. And yes, there are certainly more in that direction. But of course, what I'm thinking about is more that people who come here, take up residency later in life, and I arbitrarily use the age of over 50, and they become an increasing burden on the health service as they grow older. Now, unless there is an agreement, then that's going to become a bigger cost to Guernsey and a bigger cost of the transferred healthcare.
Do you think then that the States of Guernsey could insist that they took out compulsory insurance with a commercial insurer to deal with it?
Well, that's one approach, certainly. Or the other is that you add on a premium price for each time they visit the healthcare centre here, or need some routine procedures addressed.
Of course, the next big elephant in the room is the care system, which obviously is getting to a situation where everyone's recognising it as going critical.
Well, yes, and I mean, basically, Guernsey and Alderney are really a microcosm of the issue in the UK. It's just smaller, but the healthcare system here, in the context of the Connaught and the Jubilee and so on, has worked well, but there's growing demand on it, and not perhaps for debate now, Tony, but of course they're trying to extend the Connaught at the moment with some current attendant problems. But it is a growing concern, and ultimately the states of Guernsey and Alderney will have to look at if you like, taking a charge over people's property if it comes to it. It's not something I particularly advocate, but one has to look at that unless there is some additional what I call hypothecated tax, which goes directly to the healthcare.
Yeah, I mean,
in old age.
This is part of their proposed solution, which we'll come to in a minute, if that's okay. But just for the purposes of clarification, Robert, the Connaught and the Jubilee, are they actually owned and run by the States of Alderney?
Yeah, yes, they are, with obviously contributions from the people who stay there, according to the needs.
But they are Alderney businesses.
They are Alderney. In fact, I think the Connaught's the largest employer.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, of course, they've got to fill the black hole of COVID. Although actually, in general terms, it isn't quite as severe as some might say.
I don't think it is. I think if we're talking particularly about the health care issues rather than the financial impact of COVID, I think the challenges are getting to what I call herd immunity. And in some ways, there's less unanimity as we emerged from lockdown and moved to herd immunity than there was during lockdown. You've got, I think the communication is more ambiguous. The health authority comes over as less certain, less confident. So I think there are some sort of social psychological problems in emerging from COVID. But we will get there if that doesn't sound platitudinous. I would be frankly rather concerned if I had refused the vaccination, because I think one is going to become more and more isolated from a travel and mobility point of view, and people will be, albeit with vaccine, will be carrying the COVID virus or the COVID bug around with them. So I think those who haven't been vaccinated have a higher risk of health problems than those who don't.
It's still very important, but nevertheless, Robert, we do have a situation where they paid out money in grants to the self-employed and sort of furlough arrangements to the employed. That's got to be paid for. Do we know roughly how much that accounts?
I gather it's somewhere. The total thing is about 30 to 35 million pounds.
Yeah.
If you take the big picture, which I say has to be paid for, and you see, I think that is also, that should be treated as separate from what I'll call the funding required for what is called the Guernsey Work Plan to get back, and whether that should be paid back short term in terms of some temporary tax, although once a tax is in, it's very difficult to get rid of it. I'm not sure, but I would treat that separately to the consequential plan and resuscitation requirements arising from COVID.
We've still got to look at the airport runways for both Alderney and Guernsey, and they are a liability, aren't they, in terms of the fact they've got to find the money to fund these things.
Well, they are a liability, and but I think it's something we should be mindful of, depending on how sort of relations go with Europe over the next 2 or 3 years. But Alderney is very near France, and perhaps in some ways could be seen as more strategic to the UK than it was historically. But let me not elaborate on that at the moment.
Okay, that's for a future date. That's for a future date.
Watch relationships with France.
Now, next one on my list, the current Social Security Fund, due to run out in 2039. So they've got to make provision there, haven't they, for a build-up?
Well, they do, and again, if you're going to increase taxes, then I think that's another one that needs to be particularly hypothecated, in the sense, we're charging you this or that, and this is going to go directly to building up again the Social Security Fund. What I think is bad in the current proposal of raising taxes is it's seen as a big block, and it's not transparent enough as to what will go where and for what purpose. Yeah. But Treasury ministers hate to be pinned down.
Then we've got that age-old perennial elephant in the room, the States of Guernsey staff pension scheme. Now, I don't know whether you saw the one that I did with Toby a few weeks ago. Toby doesn't think it's quite as bad as it seems because of the FRS accounting standards, but nevertheless, it is a substantial sum.
It is a substantial sum, and you see it will go up, because if if you agree that there is going to be an increase in inflation, and not just a blip, as the Bank of England tries to kid us that this is just a blip for the next year, and they're going to try to hold down interest rates. But I think both the general demand will increase inflation, and of course these pensions are index linked.
Yeah.
You see.
Yeah.
So if it's 3, 4, 5%, that will continue to go up. So while I may agree with Toby Birch in terms of the kind of accounting and treatment for it, it's FRS won't get rid of the problem.
And I think last time round it was shown to be about 1.2 billion.
That's correct, which is quite a big sum. Now, all right, if interest rates go up and the government bond yields improve, then of course that will reduce that sort of actuarial liability. But as I say, it's going to be compensated for by inflation, and these pensions are inflation linked. How should I put it? It's going to be. I don't think the either pensioners or the contributors would be very happy if they took away the inflation.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Factor.
Yeah. Okay. We've also, of course, got the Guernsey Together bond, which matures in 2046. Do you think anyone's making any arrangements for a sinking fund for that, or?
Well, I think it pays a coupon 3 and 3.75%. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. And allegedly, those funds that aren't being used are making a return of about 8% at the moment. One would hope that that difference is going into a sinking fund, although I haven't seen any evidence of it yet. And then the other issue that I think will be or is in debate in the context of the Guernsey work plan is whether some of these funds that haven't been used should actually be used to resuscitate the economy in terms of contributing to some of the capital projects.
But surely that's what it was supposed to be about in the first place. You don't borrow money just to reinvest it.
Well, it was, but there were constraints on how the capital was to be used.
Right.
I mean, my own view is that when the states put together that bond, they were either not very well advised, or how should I put it? They didn't have the experience. But there we are.
I mean, is it tradable?
Theoretically, yes, it is. It is listed on the international stock exchange, the Guernsey Stock Exchange. So, but I mean, because it pays 3.75%, most investors buy to hold.
Yeah, right.
And it's not very it's not very liquid. The other unfortunate thing about it is that there's no call option on it. That is, the states can't redeem it or repackage it, which to me was a sort of major blunder at the time. But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
But that's a standard practice, isn't it? When you're dealing with retail bonds and fixed interest and all this sort of stuff.
Well, it is. So, either they were badly advised, or they weren't advised at all, or they thought they knew better.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know.
Right, just to continue the depressing news, we've got various taxes that are now definitely on the wane, such as petrol.
Yes. The sin taxes.
Yeah, as we electrify. We've got the tobacco as we stop smoking and things like that.
Yeah.
So there are sort of mini craters occurring there that have got to be filled, aren't they?
Well, that's right. And you see that these have traditionally, historically, and in a lot of Western jurisdictions, been used to sort of fill the gap But I think they won't fill the gap in future, and because there's a lack of demand for them, so they'll have to find other sin taxes, maybe an internet tax or a film. An online film tax. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, but
no, but everything needs to be looked at. Now let's come on to the solutions, the bits that Guernsey have suggested that we talk about, and basically the first one is the health tax of 3%. Now, is this going to be over and above existing contributions?
Yes, and I see this as a hypothecated tax. In other words, we're taking an extra 3% from you, and it's going to help. But although taxes are never palatable, I think people would tolerate this if they knew specifically that it was going to, I don't know, care homes or additional medicines or whatever it might be. So so it has to be spelt out exactly what this is going for in each year, and so people would tolerate it. Let's put it like that.
But taking our situation, do we use the P word, pensioners?
Well, I mean, again, this is a very difficult problem, because as we know, if you have the level of income as a pension, you pay until you go to the grave.
Absolutely,
and that doesn't happen in the UK. I mean, I think in the UK they've nudged the retirement age up to 65, 67 for men. I think I'd suggest that, as with Social Security, there will be some sort of scaling down for what may be called pensioners.
But having said that, we are currently paying around about 3%, less a little bit of an allowance for health and care. So that's suddenly going to become 6%. Potentially.
It is indeed. And I mean, this is where one might criticize not opening the health service to people who come to settle here over the age of 50, because if one did that, one couldn't charge them, in my view, Social Security. But I think as the pensioners are probably 40% of the population in Alderney, and perhaps 35% in Guernsey, it may not be fair, but I think they will be asked to contribute according to their income levels. So we'll have to cough up if we can afford it.
The second option, which is also the third option, is this question of goods and services tax, which is basically VAT, isn't it, for want of a better description?
It is.
So the first option is to take it up to 5%, and the second option is to gradually take it up to 8%. Obviously, inflation implications straight away on that one.
Well, I mean, I'm against GST for a number of reasons. First of all, it's inequitable. Secondly, there's a lot of additional administration for GST, both by the companies or enterprises which incur it, and also for the states as well. The states have to set up an administrative process dealing with it. It particularly adds to inflation. And don't forget that a lot of annual budget increases in the state are linked to the RPI or CPI index. So a goods and services tax would immediately add to those and bring price increases for other government services.
I believe sorry, Robert. I believe you've got to take the first 3% to cover the admin costs.
Well, yes, it will be 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
And while you may exempt small businesses from GST, at the end of the day, larger businesses wouldn't want small businesses to get a sort of competitive advantage from that exemption. And then of course we have what I call the Amazon and related issues of imported goods, which you or I and others may buy. And I think Jersey has if the consignment is over £135, I think it is, then GST applies. And of course, some of the suppliers will actually give up wanting to supply the Bay of Guernsey because it's administratively too complicated.
Yes, I can see that happening. The other thing is that in the UK, the registration limit's about £80,000, I believe. Jersey's about 300,000, isn't it?
That's right. Yes, the Jersey one is very high. Now, I don't know, and others may be able to enlighten us on does this give any advantages to the smaller businesses in Jersey or not? I would assume not, because the bigger businesses would have kicked up a fuss by now. But it's an interesting area for
But the thing is, though, Robert, if you are registered, you can claim it back, can't you?
You can indeed.
Whereas if you're not, you just have to take the hit.
Exactly. But again, that's more paperwork. Both the supply of goods and also the intermediary, the enterprise that's importing and distributing.
Let's have a look at a few other solutions. Yeah. Increase income tax.
Well, I think at least a temporary, although taxes are never temporary, banded income tax of sort of. I look at a figure of 25% on taxable incomes over £100,000.
Yeah.
So that you pay 25% on the element over £100,000.
Yeah.
I don't mean on the whole.
So like high rate in the UK.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I fail to see a vociferous objection to that.
It's not unreasonable, I don't think.
It's not unreasonable, and you see, I think one of the things that Mark Haley has done, he's produced three options from his sort of magic stack, if I could put it like that. But he hasn't been through the others and exhaustively said why he's eliminating. So I just wonder where these rabbits have come from.
One thing that really annoys me, and this doesn't apply just to the States of Guernsey, it applies to virtually every government in the world, including the United Kingdom, and that's the sheer hypocrisy of raising social security payments as an alternative to income tax. Because essentially, all right, so we promise not to up the rate of income tax, but you're still going to have to pay more. And that really annoys me.
Exactly, and that's why I mean, generally, I would like to see more hypothecation of taxes, so that, for example, in the UK, that there may be a specific 1% or 2% of tax, but it goes to re-establishing the health service in the UK, which is structurally on its knees at the moment. But again, Treasury ministers don't like this because it gives them less flexibility. Well, I think the time has come for them to put up with it.
Yeah. Okay, here's the next one. Scrap 010 corporation tax and follow the G20 15% rule with no deferrals.
Well, I politically, I think that would be a good move. What you have to be careful of is that it's not just a token move. So introducing 15% maybe, may I say, be a sop to the international pressures. But how much will it gather? At what level do you start corporation tax, and how do you scale it up? Because if it starts at a relatively high level, and there's lots of small businesses in the bailiwick, then it's quite meaningless in terms of collecting tax revenues for use in resuscitation of the economy.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a situation where Jersey shareholders own a Guernsey company on the 0-10 basis, if they declare a dividend, does that have to be disclosed to Guernsey income tax, or?
Yeah, I think so. You raise a very good question. I don't know whether there are disclosure arrangements between the crown dependencies.
Yeah,
it's a very good question. I'm not sure there are.
Well, in that case, would it be fair to say then that all Guernsey get the 10%, not the 20%?
Well, quite. No, but you raise a very good point I hadn't thought of. Are there, just as we have disclosure arrangements with the UK, I'm not sure there are with Jersey and the Isle of Man. I might raise the point.
I shall leave you to do so. Next one on the other solutions list is inheritance tax. Now that's going to go down like a lead balloon, isn't it?
Well, indeed. The inheritance is I think going to become a more important feature over the next generation, because younger generations haven't had the opportunity to accumulate capital in perhaps the way we have through property and other things, and there's getting more reliance on inheritance. So that is going to be a very, very, very difficult one, unless you put inheritance tax at I don't know, at a couple of £1 million. Because increase, house price inflation. Well, we've seen it even on this island now. The increase in house prices. Houses are the major assets, and I think it's if a politician wants to be voted out of office, I think that's the one to propose, Tony.
That's the one to go for, absolutely. What about the civil service? Too many people? Should we outsource functions?
Well, I certainly think that there is a lot to say for outsourcing what I call non-contentious functions, and I think Mr. Whitfield, who was going to reduce the civil service numbers in Guernsey, has been fortunate with COVID in the sense that's enabled that not to happen.
He's the CEO.
He's the CEO, yes, and he doesn't appear in public much.
No,
but there does need to be a really hard look at these civil service numbers, and I would hope in this tax debate in September in the States of Guernsey that there is a motion put forward to have a short-term intense examination of the civil service, particularly in the context of the Guernsey work plan, the future. And I think that needs to be done very quickly. And if necessary, Mr. Whitfield needs to appear before a relevant scrutiny committee to answer questions. Civil servants don't, but I think he should be compelled to do so on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they would in the UK, wouldn't they? They would appear before select committees.
They would, and so civil servants should be called to account. Scrutiny committee, but that's one for Mr. Meerveld, I suppose.
Final point that I put down, Robert, is to sell off the airports and the harbours, put them into private ownership.
Well, that might be an elegant solution for Alderney, because Actually, let me put it to you as delicately as I can. The job creation scheme of maintaining the breakwater, which was implemented in response to the UK wanting the Crown dependencies to contribute towards defence.
Yeah.
I don't think it does any longer. That there is no way that naval power is going to reassemble here, and I think the UK government would be very pleased if Guernsey could find another use to contribute to defence rather than maintaining the breakwater.
Like cash.
Like cash. And that would pose a problem here.
Mm.
So I think, yes, I think if you sell off the harbour, the sooner the better, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there we are.
Yeah, and I mean, perhaps the airports as well, but I think anyone buying the airports will want to buy all the Channel Islands airports.
Yeah, sure.
Want to buy one or
no, and I can't imagine Jersey would want to sell there. So
well, no. You see, getting agreement amongst the Crown dependencies for sale of their airports.
It's asking a lot, but
that's a very challenging.
This has always been my gripe: the fact that there is no cooperation between the two major islands, and if they sort of could come up with some sort of confederation, they could save so much money, and I think all do well out of it.
Well, I think you're right, because otherwise, and they need to do this in my view, in response to what is going to be increasing alignment with the UK post Brexit.
Yeah.
And I'm not making a political point here, but I think I think some of the measures that the UK will take over the next 2 or 3 years, I think I can think of things like financial services, defence, foreign affairs, and so on, will align the Crown dependencies much more with the UK, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, very much so.
And so I think if they had a confederation, that would be an enterprise which I think could go in and negotiate much more coherently with the UK government on specific matters.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I think we've just about come to the end of the other solutions. So as ever, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have a chat today. And we'll see you later on in the year, no doubt.
Absolutely. And thanks a lot. And say there's plenty to talk about at the moment, Ted.
Yes, there is plenty to talk about. That's for sure. Thank you, Robert.
Okay.